Is blindness a barrier? No.
Is deafness a barrier? No.
Are mobility, learning, cognitive disabilities, speech impairments and others, or even a combination of them, barriers? No way. Lack of accessibility is.
Welcome to Web Accessibility for All.
Follow the blind. This journey starts now.
Wow, new! Damn! Yeah! Wow, yeah, come on over, take this. Hey! Mateo, seriously, what are you doing? The enemy is right there. You're shooting the wall.
Game over.
Hey, are you seeing this okay?
Kinda can't see the guy unless he moves. And the text, it's too small. I don't know. Maybe it's me. Maybe it's the TV. I don't know.
What do you mean you can't see him? I mean, he's bright red.
That's the problem, Lucas. I don't see red. It just looks grayish, like everything blends together.
For weeks, Lucas thought Mateo was joking around, or distracted, or trying a new play style that absolutely did not work. But now it clicks. This wasn't bad game playing. This was something else.
Why didn't you tell me?
'Cause I didn't want you to stop playing with me.
This episode is about that moment. The moment when video games stop being fun because the interface stops being visible or usable or forgiving for users whose eyes don't cooperate with how screens are designed. Hey my friend, Ariel here, and welcome back to Web Accessibility for All, the podcast where we take real stories, real challenges, and real people's experiences and turn them into practical lessons for building a more inclusive digital world. And today we are stepping a little outside the usual territory of websites and web apps. We are entering the world of video games. But don't worry, this is not a gaming episode. This is an accessibility episode that happens to take place inside a game. Because what happens between two brothers on a couch is a window into an entire industry.
Why accessibility in video games is so inconsistent.
Let's start with something that surprises plenty of people outside the gaming world and still frustrates almost everyone inside it.
There is no unified standard like WCAG for video game mechanics.
Well, almost. In the US, there is the CPAA, a law that forces in-game chat and menus to be accessible. That's why you might see text-to-speech for chat logs. But for the actual gameplay, for jumping, shooting, and exploring, no universal checklist. To understand why the landscape looks this chaotic, we need to take a quick step back. In the 8-bit era, think Atari or NES, accessibility was accidental. Simple graphics meant high contrast. But as games moved to photorealism, complexity exploded. Different platforms evolved in completely different ways, depending on where the game lives. Console games, PC games, mobile games, web games, its accessibility challenges are radically different. In a world where accessibility isn't unified, it's reinvented by each studio, each engine, and each platform.
How modern games create invisible barriers.
Let's get into the heart of the problem. Games are usually built visually first, narratively second, mechanically third, and accessibly somewhere around 11th place. One advocate from a blindness association once summarized the situation this way.
Most modern games are built assuming perfect eyes, perfect contrast sensitivity, perfect motion tracking, and perfect reading speed. Anyone outside that norm is treated like an edge case.
Let's break down exactly who gets left behind.
Progressive low vision.
Conditions like glaucoma, retinitis pigmentosa, or diabetic retinopathy affect field of vision and fine detail. For these players, modern games failed via tiny heads-up displays or HUDs, fixed-size UI elements, low-contrast minimaps, fast screen movement that triggers motion sickness.
Color vision deficiencies.
Color blindness affects roughly 8% of men, yet many games still rely solely on color to indicate enemy versus friendly, or rare loot versus common trash. If you can't see red, you can't see the danger.
Light sensitivity and photophobia.
Migraine, post-concussion, and autism spectrum conditions often come with extreme visual sensitivity. The enemies here are flicker, flashes, gloom, motion blur, rapid contrast shifts.
Blindness and total vision loss.
For blind players, the challenges are systemic. Menus that have no speech output, canvases that expose nothing to screen readers, soundscapes prioritize atmosphere over orientation, 3D spaces without 3D audio logic. And here is the uncomfortable truth. The tech that powers modern games often works against accessibility. HDR, depth of field, chromatic aberration, all designed for visual spectacle, not perceptual clarity.
Browser games, when the web becomes the console.
They look simple. They seem low stakes. But in reality, they live at the intersection of the web's best practices and games' worst habits. Semantic structure, keyboard navigation, area patterns, predictable focus, all of this tends to get thrown out the window. Web games often start from a blank canvas and forget the fundamentals that make the web great. So if the web has standards, why isn't there a manual for this? Actually, there is a group trying to write that manual.
The W3C Games Community Group.
They are doing the hard work of translating web standards into game mechanics. They publish documents like the Accessibility of Web Games Note. They are figuring out how to map HTML navigation to a game controller, or how to handle focus when the focus is a 3D character. If you are building a game in React or Canvas, this is your blueprint.
Designing for multiple visual impairments.
Let's get practical. Today's games create a perfect storm of visual demands. Rapid motion, particle systems, tiny indicators, and cinematic darkness. This combination creates a specific problem: visual fatigue.
Why games are magnifiers of vision problems.
Video games combine speed, plus precision, plus clutter, plus motion. It's the most visually demanding medium humans are ever created. So for someone with a mild visual issue, games can be the first place they realize something is wrong.
How modern games can intensify vision strain and fatigue.
1. Information overload versus clarity.
Modern games love spectacle, but the visual human system can only handle so much. Ian Hamilton, a leading accessibility advocate, puts it simply.
Good visuals don't come from more effects. They come from clarity.
For players with cataracts or macular degeneration, overstimulation causes immediate loss of focus and dizziness.
2. The tunnel vision problem.
Here is a concept that devs rarely deal with: FOV, or field of view. If a player has retinitis pigmentosa, also known as tunnel vision, a wide game camera distorts the world and makes it unreadable. If the camera is too close, it causes nausea. Without an FOV slider to adjust this, the game is physically painful to play.
3. Visually induced motion sickness, VIMS.
Camera shake, head bobbing, and forced motion blur mimic the feeling of poison into the brain. This isn't just annoyance, it's physiological. If a player cannot turn off head bob, they simply cannot play.
4. Visual processing.
This is where cognitive load meets visual impairment. When UI demands to read tiny text while tracking a fast-moving target,
while decoding a complex minimap,
the brain floods.
For users with slower visual processing, this stacking effect results in a total accessibility collapse.
5. Audio without meaning.
For blind and low vision players, sound is vision, but many games treat sound as decoration. If audio isn't spatial, if I can't hear where the footsteps are coming from, it's useless noise. Now let's look at the light at the end of the tunnel.
What the industry is finally getting right.
Audio first and self-voicing.
Games are starting to include their own screen readers, self-voicing, that live inside the game engine, bypassing the OS limitations.
The ping system.
This creates a visual marker, an audio cue, and a text log. It helps everyone: deaf players, cognitive load, and language barriers.
High contrast and outline modes.
Some games now allow you to put a bright, solid outline around enemies or items, like a thick yellow stroke. It bypasses the art style entirely.
Fully remappable controls.
Allowing players to change any button or use just one stick instead of two reduces the motor fatigue that often accompanies visual struggles.
Final thoughts.
So, if you are building a web game, 1. Don't assume a mouse. 2. Treat audio as information, not decoration. 3. Keep UI outside the canvas where screen readers can reach it. 4. Build for progressive vision loss. If you are listening to this, whether you are a developer or someone like Matteo trying to understand why the screen feels like it's fighting you, Remember this, the game industry doesn't have a standard yet, but we, the accessibility community, already know how to build one, and the next generation of accessible games might just come from the web. This has been Web Accessibility for All. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you in the next episode. Goodbye.
Thanks for joining us today. Subscribe for a new challenge next week. And don't be shy. Leave us a review or ask your accessibility questions online. See you next week for another episode of Web Accessibility for All.